Hello everyone, welcome to the webinar with Dr. Thomas Hainschwang. Dr. Thomas is the director and co-founder of GGTL Laboratories, founded in 1996. He has been working on the analysis of diamonds, color stones, and pearls for the past 25 years and is a respected expert in the field of gemological research and colored diamonds. Besides his expertise, Dr. Thomas has developed and built many analytical instruments for the gem and pearl testing in the past years. These analytical systems have been sold and installed worldwide. Many of these instruments have been developed to enable the laboratory to efficiently analyze melee-sized gemstones, which is another specialty of Dr. Thomas. We at GemAtlas are glad to have Dr. Thomas talk about challenges in testing melee-sized diamonds and colored stones. A little bit about GemAtlas is that we are a global B2B networking platform for the gems and jewelry industry. We help you connect with businesses and professionals around the world. We can easily start generating new business leads through our platform. There will also be a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, so please feel free to enter your questions below and have them answered at the end of this presentation. Over to you, Dr. Thomas.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for listening in. So my name is Dr. Thomas Hainschwang. I'm the director of GGTL Laboratories here in Liechtenstein. And I'm going to talk today about melee-sized gem testing. So about one of the topics we are being challenged with since a couple of years, and which is one of the specialities of our laboratory. Well, let me jump right into the presentation. So first, let's just talk about what are melee-sized gemstones. Maybe some of you are not familiar with the terminology melee. There is no straight definition where the line falls, but the limit has to be drawn between single stones and melee. In diamonds, generally speaking, round brilliant cut diamonds of 3.4 millimeters or less, or in carats, 0.2 carats or less, are considered to be melee. In colored stones, you can't really give a weight limit because you have different specific gravities for each material. So but simply speaking, it's small diamonds, small gemstones. So melee is small gemstones. If we talk melee, most of the time, we talk anything from 0.4 to whatever is 3 millimeters or a little bigger. So why should we test melee-sized gem materials? You might ask yourself, laboratories typically test large stones, important stones, valuable stones, not melee. Melee testing has started some years ago in colorless diamonds. What many people are doing, even in the facilities that produce jewelry, but not like gemstones in general. Problem is, you have a relatively low value compared to the analysis cost. But there is many things possible, and many things are asked today, specifically from the large jewelry houses. So we work on authenticity testing, it's natural versus synthetic versus imitations, species variety verifications, like sometimes on garnets, for example, treatment testing, in certain cases, country of origin testing, and then specifically for diamonds is quality testing and cut quality evaluation, which can be done for really small stones as well. So what do you need to do in order to test melee? What do you need? What specificalities do you need in order to be able to test melee? One important thing is to have specially adapted instruments for melee gemstones. Commercially available instruments very often aren't really adapted for small stones. So if you buy a commercially available UV visible spectrometer and you try to take a low temperature spectrum of a 1 millimeter colored diamond, then I wish you good luck. Because it will not work. It will be impossible. Even a room temperature spectrum will be impossible. So what did we do here? We adapted instrumentations, we developed instrumentations, we built instrumentations to enable us to test small stones very efficiently. The most important of these instruments I show you now. This is our fluorescence microscopy and spectroscopy system that also does Raman spectroscopy. We have 2 of them here at the lab and several out in other places. So we use these techniques combined with each other in order to identify gemstones very quickly, very rapidly. Works for many gem species, not for everything, but the combination of visible observed fluorescence, fluorescence spectroscopy, and Raman spectroscopy enables us to provide services that without this instrument would be impossible, at least not at commercially interesting tariffs. So here we're actually doing all at the same time. We're doing imaging spectroscopy at the same time and have automatic screening software that goes with it. So it basically tells us by visual and acoustic means whether a stone is okay or not. I'll show you some videos on these systems a little later. Let's just go straight into the gemstones. Let's talk about the most common topic for most labs, at least, and for most people, at least, is colorless melodiamond. In colorless melodiamond, in the past years, we had issues since about 2014, 2015, that, particularly synthetics, much less imitations, but particularly synthetics are being mixed in parcels of melodiamonds. And the task usually is to identify those. It's rather uncommon that somebody asks you for treatment detection because in melee diamonds, quite frankly, HPHT treatment is virtually inexistent, doesn't make any sense anyways. And the testing for it is almost impossible unless you invest quite some time. So the most common task is to distinguish natural from synthetic. So let me show you a couple of images, how we do just by fluorescence imaging, and give you a couple of ideas what spectroscopy does on it. I'm going to be heavily leaning towards fluorescence imaging in this talk. I'm not going to talk about the other methods, even though they are always combined with each other. But in this presentation, it makes most sense to talk about fluorescence imaging. So here you see on the left side a natural type 1A diamond with complex mixed growth under about 210 to 230 nanometer excitation. So we're in the deep UV. In the deep UV, you can see a surface. On the surface of the diamond, you will see the growth sectors of the diamond. And these growth sectors tell you right away that this stone is natural. There is no doubt about it. That's a type 1 stone on the left side. And on the right side, you see dislocations in a natural type 2A diamond under the same type of excitation. These type of dislocations also identify the stone straightforward and immediately as natural. You see dislocations in CVD synthetic diamonds, but they don't look anything like that. CVD diamonds also react very differently to the different UV excitations that we use, because with our systems, we use a range of UV excitations to see how gemstones react under the different excitations. So we're not just simply going deep UV and that's it, but we're going way further. We're doing the entire range of excitations that are actually available. On synthetic diamonds, 2 images to demonstrate how dramatically different they are. On the left side, you see an HPHT synthetic diamond. These stones, well, sometimes in melee, not always visible. You see the typical growth sectors for synthetics. In really small melee diamonds might not be visible, but those stones have very specific fluorescence reactions. Might resemble to certain natural diamonds, like type 2B natural diamonds, but there is many means to verify that other than just fluorescence imaging. But in the fluorescence imaging, you usually see the sectors needed, and you'll have other things like strong phosphorescence, etc., that identify an HPHT synthetic quite quickly and quite efficiently. And in colorless diamonds, type 2B phosphorescent natural diamonds are very unusual anyways. So it's not the thing that you see all the time. The right side, you see a CVD synthetic. Most colorless CVD synthetics out there at the moment are HPHT processed after growth. So they So because they tend to be brownish after growth, and then they get colorless through HPHT treatment. That treatment induces a specific fluorescence. You can see that here. So again, deep UV excitation, and you see this green fluorescence, layered fluorescence. You can see the layered. That's actually from the layer to layer growth of CVD synthetics. Very characteristic. And here again, combination of the UV reaction, the different excitations tells you right away if something's CVD or not. Now, if you want to confirm a stone, for example, you have a stone and you're not certain if it's natural or not, at least for colorless synthetic diamonds, currently we're in the situation that there's the N3 center is the 3 nitrogen, 1 vacancy defect in diamond is let's say distinctly visible in fluorescence only in natural diamonds, not in synthetics. In HPHT synthetics, never observed. In CVD synthetic diamonds, only after HPHT treatment, and even then only very weakly. So if you have a distinct N3 center, this is a fluorescence spectrum of the N3 center. Basically, this broad band represents this blue fluorescence that you're seeing. This is proof for you that your stone is natural. And that's what most small testers, or the more efficient small testers, look for. So if you have those small diamond testers that cost a couple of $1,000s, they usually have a small spectrometer in it that detects N3 center. That's what most of them do, which works fine for colorless. So if you look at the same thing in colorless HPHT synthetic diamonds, you might see the following. So you might see these things appearing in your photoluminescence. These are nickel-related things, defects that you might pick up in fluorescence spectroscopy. But just be aware, anybody who does this type of testing, that today, I would say about 95 to 98% of all HPHT synthetics show no defects whatsoever. Neither at low temperature nor at room temperature. So, but even that by itself is suspicious for a synthetic diamond. Quick word on CVD synthetic diamonds. So here we see the 2 types of CVD synthetic diamonds. On the left side, you have the stones that have not been HPHT processed. So just as they get out of the growth chamber, they fluoresce typically this orange to pink color. And after HPHT treatment, you see the stones on the right side. After HPHT treatment, if they have to be HPHT treated, they will fluoresce something between blue, greenish blue to green. The cause of these fluorescences, the orange fluorescence, is the NV center. That's a simple nitrogen vacancy center. It causes this orange to pink fluorescence. And sometimes you're going to get a green response depending on the excitation from this 467 nanometer center. And after HPHT treatment, 467 is suppressed, NV center reduced, and you're going to form this broad band at 450 nanometers. It fluctuates somewhat, but this band can be found somewhere between 540 and about 450 and 520 nanometers, and in correspondence, your stone will fluoresce either blue or green. Some HPHT treated stones still will have NV centers, and then you will have a purple fluorescence, you might have violet fluorescence. So it'll give you a range of possible responses, and this is approximately long wave excitation, what I'm talking about in these fluorescence responses. But they're very easily identifiable when you look at the excitation from excitation to excitation, and also when you look for N3 center, you will not find anything significant in these diamonds. Let me show you practical work on our DTEC. That's like the little brother of the DFI. I'll show you how this machine works. This is Jonna working on a couple of stones, and I'll explain while the video runs. Okay, so she puts the diamonds under the, I think here it's laser excitation, what she's using. So this gives you a green response and a light sound when it's natural. So these are natural stones, all fine. And you get a red response and a loud sound when the stone is not okay. So these are CVD synthetics, CVD synthetic, another one. This is an HPHT synthetic. Another CVD, natural stone. So the software enables you to work through a lot of stones very quickly. Analysis time, as you can see, is in the milliseconds. And you know, when you do this for actual parcel, then you run through the stones much faster because you do not have to rely on spectrum for everything, but a lot of interpretation is happening straight under the microscope. But it's only for the doubtful cases where you need spectroscopy. This will help you to decide whether a stone's natural or not. So it's very, very practical and very, very efficient approach. Let's talk colored diamond melee. Colored diamond melee are far more complex and demanding, and very few actually dare doing it. They have an overwhelming quantity of defects that can be detected by spectroscopy and will give various luminescence responses in consequence. Only in yellow diamond alone, there are hundreds of lines and bands detectable. There is quite an overlap between synthetic and natural colored diamonds in defects, so it's not an easy task. The luminescence appearance of synthetic and natural diamonds overlaps significantly as well. And then last but not least, we have the problem that we don't only have to determine synthetics, but also color origin, because treated melee diamonds is also a reality. So we have to include color origin determination as well in this task. And just to give you an idea, on yellow diamonds alone, we found so far about 8 different types of synthetic yellow diamonds that have a very different reaction under luminescence. Makes the whole topic very complex and problematic. Let's go straight into the yellows. This is a study we did in 2011 together with Cartier Paris on yellow melee. So we tested this, for this small study, we tested 35,000 yellow diamonds from 0.7 to 3.5 millimeters. And you can see that the percentage of synthetics was quite significant, especially in diameters between 1.5 and 2.5 millimeters. So we were at 3.4 to 4.5% of synthetics, all HPHT synthetics. So this is pretty significant, and I just want to warn anybody who deals with melee yellow diamonds and believes that they know their supplier. It's very nice to trust in somebody, but in any parcel since 2011, every single parcel that has come through this lab, we have found synthetics. Not very high percentages, usually very low, but they're out there and they're in every single parcel. Let's have a look at some stones, how they react to fluorescence. So these are various kind of excitations. Here you see different colors. These are all natural stones. Yellow diamond, orange yellow here, brown diamond, yellow, and another yellow, hydrogen rich. You can see you have quite variable appearances under different excitations. And then you have to imagine we have currently 7 different excitations on our fluorescence microscope, and each excitation does something else to the diamond. But as soon as you see something like that, you're safe and you're sure that your stone is natural, a natural diamond. And compared to this, here's a slide to show you how synthetic diamonds look like. So these are, again, different excitations of different synthetics. So all of them are HPHT synthetics, except the top 2 in the middle. Those are CVDs. That's actually one and the same CVD. On the left side, you see it under 405 nanometer excitation. On the right side, you see it under UV excitation. 405 excites the 467 nanometer band much stronger than the UV excitation, which excites the NV center much more. That's why one's green and the other red. You can see the layered growth in both of them, which tells you pretty much that this stone is very likely CVD. Could be confused with green graining from the H3 center, but you know it's not that resemblant to normal graining. And then all the others are HPHT synthetics, and here you can see nicely again the growth sectors that will identify the stone as synthetic right away. Now, just a word of warning, these are images that nicely show the growth sectors. If you look at melee diamonds, the growth sectors might be much less obvious. And then it might get confusing, like the center stone in the bottom here, the HPHT yellow. There's things that look pretty much like that, and that's not an obvious synthetic at first sight. And you might have just one sector and no sector, or things that might look at first sight natural. So you got to be really careful, especially with the HPHT yellows. They are super complicated today. Sometimes you want to verify a stone by fluorescence. At room temperature, most yellow HPHT synthetics won't show much, except if they have been HPHT processed, or if you're lucky enough to have a cobalt grown stone in front of you, then you can identify it just like that at room temperature. Sometimes they need low temperature in order to see anything anyways. For example, the 484 nanometer center that you see in the left, in many stones is only active at low temperature, not at room temperature. But again, yellow HPHT synthetics in melee are highly complicated, and the risk of missing stones when you do melee is huge, unless you have a lot of experience. Quick talk about color treatments. Fluorescence microscopy on certain colors will identify color treatment immediately. If you look at pinks and purples and reds, in natural colors, unless you look at the type 2A diamond of rare pink fluorescence, which is really unusual, orange-pink fluorescence. If you see that in melee, pink fluorescence, red fluorescence, multicolored blue, pink, red fluorescences, you know right away your stone is treated. If it's natural or not, you don't know, but you will know it is treated for sure, because these defects occur only in treated stones, at least when we talk about 1A or 1B diamonds. That doesn't exist naturally. In some greens, greenish blues, you might see surface-related fluorescence. That might be tricky to interpret properly, because there is such thing like surface-related fluorescence in naturally colored green diamonds as well. So that might be tricky, but depending on the stone, it will be obvious. If all the fluorescence follows precisely just facet edges, you know pretty much what you're looking at. You're looking at stones that have been either cyclotroned or low energy electron irradiated. Okay, let's get straight into colored stone melee. I can't talk about very much because I don't have much time to talk about the different species / varieties. So I'm just going to talk about a couple of them. But in colored stone melee, you have pretty much countless possibilities. Any gem material in melee sizes is currently being sent to our lab for testing. Anything from low value materials such as black spinel or amethyst to higher value materials like ruby, sapphire, emerald, paraiba, tourmaline. Anyways, no matter what you get, they all have a comparably low value compared to, let's say, colored diamonds. Hence, their efficient testing is really important. Nevertheless, the testing is typically more complex than what we do for diamonds. Not in all cases, but in some cases. Hence, the analysis cost is somewhat higher. What you gotta know is that in virtually all materials, we do find stones that don't belong in such parcels. So you see here in these two images, you see two examples. There's a tsavorite lot on the left, and there's a single stone that's out on the right. That's a chrome tourmaline, chrome vanadium tourmaline, very typically found in these parcels because they sell them on site. If you go to Africa, if you're in Kenya and you ever bought tsavorite, you'll notice that they offer you every third stone you'll be offered will be a chrome tourmaline, because they're produced in the same area. They don't even do it on purpose. They don't know what they have if you actually buy in the bush. On the right side, you see a yellow sapphire parcel and a single stone out on the right. That stone's beryllium diffused. Big problem, yellow sapphire melee, beryllium diffused stones. Huge problem, unavoidable, almost all parcels have them. Oh, from that, let's go straight into corundum. Corundum is pretty much the biggest group of stones that we do test here. There's lots of options. You have the natural versus synthetic versus imitation test, heated versus beryllium or titanium diffused, glassy residues versus lead glass treatment testing. And then last but not least would be heated versus unheated, or even origin testing. So here on the images, you can see on the left side top is the natural pinks. In the middle, that's synthetic blues, and on the right side you have natural blues, natural greens. On the bottom you have natural rubies, and in the middle bottom you see all synthetics in different colors. And on the right side, beryllium treated stones. So this is what you get. You get parcels like that, and then you have to test them and make a report according to that. Let's have a couple of look at a couple of images of corundum melee. So this is all natural corundum. Most of the images here are shown of blue heat-treated stones, because that's what you usually get. You usually get heat-treated melee. It's very unusual to have unheated material, but it's always declared as heat-treated. So these are how heat-treated blue sapphires, and also ruby here on top right. That's a ruby. It's a Mongshu ruby. So that's how they look like. So they're very, very complex growth structures that will show up in fluorescence. These are looked at on the different excitations. We usually don't go into the deep UV, but more towards 250 to 60 nanometers, because the fluorescence is much more dramatic there than on the deep UV. The deep UV weakens quite significantly. So that's what you typically see. And that's where your starting point is to determine whether stone's natural or synthetic. On the next slide, you will see how synthetics look like. So you will see this on the right side, you see a Verneuil synthetic sapphire. On the bottom, you have a Verneuil synthetic ruby that has been quench crackled and heated with borax. In the ruby quench crackle like that, you couldn't see any striations whatsoever. In the Verneuil synthetic sapphire, neither. So this method visualizes what you often can't see under a microscope. If you look for striations, etc., it's sometimes really, really hard, especially if you work with melee. I mean, you imagine if you have a 0.8 millimeter melee blue sapphire and you want to see curved striations in that, good luck. Curved bands in that, I wish you good luck. So the fluorescence enables you to do that, but you got to be really careful, because there is quite a huge similarities between Verneuil and natural. In naturals, you have curved bands as well. So the top left stone, for example, I put it in with question marks. Now, what is it? Is it natural? Is it synthetic? But this is actually a natural sapphire. This is actually a natural sapphire. It's just, and the bands look so curved because of the orientation of the stone. So your pavilion is basically curved, and depending on how your stone is cut, your growth sectors might look just like what you expect in a synthetic. So you got to be really careful interpreting this and combining this method with others, such as X-ray fluorescence or just UV visible spectroscopy, etc. Then here on this slide, I also show on the right, on the bottom, a lead glass filled ruby. So this method is really nice and neat to identify lead glass filled material. The lead glass stands out, fluorescing chalky color to the background of the ruby. Spinel, another candidate that we're testing very frequently in small sizes, in all colors, including black. We find spinel either as pollution in parcels of corundum, or we find corundum in spinel as pollution. in black spinels, we find things like augite, dark blue sapphire, tourmaline. So you can find all kinds of things. And natural spinels, you might also find synthetics and heat-treated spinels. So that's what we're out to test them for. Now, how do we do that? Here you see what is one of the tests that we're applying to these stones. It's fluorescence again. Fluorescence spectroscopy of spinel is pretty efficient. You're looking at the fluorescence. Here the images show different kind of fluorescence. So you have red to orange to green to yellow. The red and the green is the let's call it the base fluorescence. Red is caused by chromium, is caused by chromium. The green is caused by manganese. So manganese-rich spinel will fluoresce green like that. Chromium-rich will fluoresce red. And if you have a mix between manganese and chromium, depending on the ratio, the fluorescence will drift towards orange or yellow or even greenish yellow. Okay, so that's what that is. The green to greenish yellow is a band in the green. Obviously, it's not visible on this excitation, on this fluorescence spectrum that we see here. What happens when you do this testing? So in trace A down here, we see a natural untreated spinel. That's the typical chromium spectrum. In B, we see a material that I'll talk about in the next slide. This is called nanosital. And C and D is flux synthetic spinel and high temperature treated spinel. And with our software, we very easily screen out all these materials, but we can't straightforward immediately identify nanosital because it has the same spectrum as a flux synthetic spinel and high temperature treated spinel. And in these spinels and in nanosital, they're somewhat broadened bands. They overlap the spinel bands, but they're much broader and somewhat shifted. So they're easily identifiable. Let's talk about this new imitation nanosital, which is something that very few have heard of, but it's actually out there. It's a material, it's a ceramic of very curious composition. It's high in zinc and zirconium. It has more favorable properties than just regular glass, and it can be produced in pretty much any color, just like glass. Now, the interesting thing is that the photoluminescence at 405 is identical to heat-treated spinel or flux synthetic spinel. Now, if you do just 405 excitation, then yes, you might be fooled by it. If you have other excitations available, it will be very different. So here you see the same material under 240, under 340 and 260 nanometer excitation at room temperature, and the spectra with those funny broad bands are nothing like spinel. So they're easily identified as what they are. So they won't fool us, but just be careful. These things are out there, and color-wise, they are pretty convincing. Now let's get to the end of our talk, of my talk. Let's have a video of a practical example of fluorescence imaging and spectroscopy of colored stones. This is a little random parcel of pink to red to orange brown stones that are all supposed to be spinel. Okay, now the video that follows will show how efficiently we can screen such materials and identify them. Okay, let's look at this. So I am screening this in this video on the big DFI instrument that we have here, so the big fluorescence microscope. Again, it uses the same detection software as the other. So here you see the spinel. Here you see not spinel, it's a quantum. Spinel again. Not spinel. This is actually PZ. Not spinel. There's spinel. And you see a sample in the beam. This is a heat-treated spinel. This is natural spinel. Random. It's very easy to identify stones. Okay, now just some images to show you how they actually work. So here, this is corundum under laser excitation. This is a CZ under laser excitation. Here is a corundum again. This is the heat-treated spinel under UV excitation now. Yeah, it changes from orange to bulky green. Okay, so this was the video. Okay, all right. So let's get into a summary and conclusions. Melee-sized gemstone testing is a pretty demanding task that requires really specialized testing equipment and highly efficient testing procedures. And obviously, you need to have the people to reliably screen through such things because you can't automatize them. So you can't do it automatically. You need reliable people that do know what they're doing and that implement your testing procedures. In melee diamond synthetics, melee diamonds, synthetics are very widespread in the market. They're found in practically all parcels of yellow, particularly in the vivids, in browns and gray diamonds. At our level at the lab here, in most colorless parcels, we don't find the piece because they have been pre-screened in India and at the manufacturers wherever it's being pre-screened because there is many automatic machines available. So when they arrive here, they're usually clean. Compared to that, the colored stone market is different. There is a wide range of tasks, first of all individually depending on the needs of the company. And compared to diamond, the value is relatively low, which makes a highly efficient approach pretty important. Anyways, we do find in all colored stones, we find imitations, we find synthetics, we find things that just don't belong in there. And we also find treated stones, which makes this type of service very important. For many of the materials, as you have seen, the most efficient screening method, not only to screen gems, but actually identify unwanted materials, is the luminescence and techniques that I presented. Obviously, we have to combine them with regular microscopy for certain gems. We have to combine them with other methods, with UVVs, with EDX, with LIPS, etc., etc. But as a base line for us, the by far most important method is the fluorescence microscopy and spectroscopy. And I think at GGTL Laboratories, we have developed this type of screening services of diamonds and colored stones to perfection. They're really our specialty, especially since many of the instruments, we design them ourselves, which makes us much more flexible on the testing procedures. And with this slide, I thank you very much. And I finish my presentation. Thanks. And now, I guess let's go to question and answers. If you have any questions, just put them into this section. So the question is, how can melee testing be made more economical for the B2B space? This is the need of the hour as lab-grown synthetics become better and cheaper. Well, the economical part of it, you can only test it as cheap as that. I mean, in diamond testing, we're already at cents per stone. You're never going to get any cheaper than that. The machines are expensive. The laboratory equipments are expensive. The qualified persons are expensive. So you can't just make it really cheap. It's the market that needs to adapt. Basically, if you offer screened and certified parcels, they just need to be more expensive than unscreened and uncertified parcels. As long as the market expects the same prices that were offered before synthetics started popping up in parcels, that's a problem. But so we can't do anything but adapting machines and trying to do our best. But just to give you a little example, the light source alone for our DFI here costs $40,000. just the light source. That's just the base. Just to give you an idea. So many people think, a little tool that costs $2,000-3,000 will do the job in melee testing. It doesn't. It's much more complicated like that, and you need much more efficient machinery for that. And since we do all the research and all the development, we just can't do that for free. I wish if we were government funded or something, or some sort of a non-profit organization, then yeah, sure, but we're not. We have to fund ourselves, and most labs do. Okay, next question. Love the detailed presentation. Would love to know your thoughts about automated diamond grading using artificial intelligence that a few companies are working on. Do you think this would also be eventually able to be used for parcels? My automated diamond grading, I have seen color grading that's relatively efficient, automatized, but frankly, only if you have a diamond grader behind it that confirms what the machine says. Never trust an automatic machine. That's my credo, is never trust the automatic machine 100%. Don't. It's the right way. If you do that, that's the perfect way to run straight into the wall, because one day your machine is doing something wrong, nobody verifies it, you're screwed. So I think it's nice to have. It's not the thing I would rely on. For example, here when we do diamond grading, we do it by spectroscopy and by visual observation. So we combine the two. Spectrum confirms us, or screams something's wrong here, or you might be off with your opinion. So you have a second opinion. Take the machine as a second opinion, but not as your main opinion. For color grading, clarity grading, I've seen machines working. I was not convinced at all. They didn't work efficiently. They basically identified things that were not inclusions, missed the actual inclusions. They cannot see pinpoints. They cannot distinguish reflectors from real things. If anybody claims they can, I don't believe it. I have seen machines that try to do it with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is stupid. So it's not intelligent, it's stupid. It's the human who puts his input in, and that's what it's based on. So no, I don't believe in it. Not in the clarity grading part. Clarity grading is way too complicated and way too complex. How much do we charge for screening? That's a good question. Depends what you're asking for. It's like from a couple of cents for certain stones to about $1.60 to $2 for other stones. It depends what you're looking at. In some stones, they need UV visible for every single stone, so the testing time is more manipulating and more demanding. So the screening depends first of all on the quantity we receive, and second of all on what type of task we have to do. If we're planning to start a lab in India, no, we're actually planning right now to do a lab in Antwerp, but not in India. What about colored stone? Is it not too expensive currently to test melee colored stone? Yeah, it's relatively expensive. Compared to their value, it's sometimes quite expensive, because if you look at goods like, let's say, let's take the cheapest, black spinel. They're really inexpensive, and the test is not expensive either. But still, it will be quite a percentage of the value of the stone. But it's the only way to do it. If you don't, if you don't care, if in your jewelry you end up having imitations, wrong stones, synthetics, then don't test them. Otherwise, test them and sell your jewelry for a couple of bucks more. It's basically the responsibility of the seller. There is nothing, you buy your stones for a certain price, and you give your stones an added value by certifying them. That you do that on single stones, so do it on melee stones too, if you want to be sure about it. Some people don't care. Some people don't care. Really, really big companies, big reputable companies, do not care about their melee. And I'm talking, let's go into melee colored diamonds. There is companies out there that swear they know their supplier, and they don't test their yellow their yellow melee in diamond, which is absolutely ridiculous. It's every single supplier of the entire market has the same problem. They don't know 100% what's in melee yellows, so you'll have a small percentage of synthetics. And the same problem is true for colored stones. Now, if you're a really big, very reputable company, you have every interest in the world to verify that your colored stones and also your diamonds are clean. If they're not, you know how quickly it happens that somebody wants, out of fun, you know, he buys like a jewel or tests jewels from whatever big company, finds a synthetic or a stone that's wrong, and you know how quickly that's going to go through social media, New York Times, you name it, it's going to go anywhere. You know, they all jump on it and they're going to try to destroy the company's reputation, and it happens very, very fast. That's why these companies do not care if they have to pay whatever, a certain percentage on top of the value of the stones for certification. How do you prevent remixing of the certified parts with synthetics and other stones? Well, we test them and we seal them to get out. They leave sealed from here, and then it's obviously in the hand of the dealer. But once they're tested, they're immediately sealed and certified this way. Well, I think a lab in India would be more viable for you with lower labor costs and a high quantum of goods available. India is the main hub for this. Yeah, but first of all, I do not want to live in India. And second of all, in my opinion, it is absolutely impossible to find the kind of staff that we need for this type of operation in India. So it's for us, it's impossible. It's an impossible idea, specifically for staff problems. If you think that finding staff for such a type of laboratory is easy, reliable staff, it's extremely complicated and very difficult to find the right people. Big laboratories that, you know, test stones don't test melee like that, exactly for the reason that it's hard to avoid people misidentifying stones, not finding stones, making errors. If it's single stones, easily surveyable. Large quantities of stones, very hard to be surveilled. So you need to have extremely reliable staff. Very complicated thing. And also the instruments. So that's why India is not an option for us. What's the smallest parcel of melee you test? What do you mean, smallest diameter or smallest quantity of stones? We test one stone. If you want to send us one stone of 1 millimeter size, we'll test it. It's a different tariff. So we have a adapted tariff between, if you send one stone or 10,000 stones, is different tariff. So, and otherwise, if it's size of the stones, depends on what we have to do. If for certain stones we can do 0.4 millimeters, for other stones we cannot do smaller than 1.3 millimeters. So that depends on the species, on the species that we have to test. How quickly can you test each stone? 1 second per stone. The question depends what we're doing. So if you imagine you're testing diamonds, colorless diamonds, then yeah, it's sometimes even faster than that. Colored diamonds, it depends. Depends which color, what type of test. Colored stones, some stones, they need multiple testing. So if we test blue sapphires, they need multiple analysis, so it takes way longer, which also drives the cost of the analysis up. So it's extremely variable from stone to stone. And then if we do garnet species determination, you take a UV per stone. So obviously it takes a little longer too, but still we're pretty efficient. And depends again on the stones you have to test. Thing was, please undermine the Indian ability and manpower. They are already become IT hub. Okay, yeah. It's I know what it means to work in a gem testing laboratory. So it's just, for us, it's not an option, at least not for now. Is a possible online diamonds course from your lab? Not at this point. Currently, we're not offering any online courses for diamond testing. We're doing mostly what we're doing is diamond. If somebody needs to have diamond courses, we do that on site at their place. We can do that, but we don't do any online courses.
Thank you for sharing your valuable time and expertise. We would also like to thank the audience for being an active one throughout the session. We hope you enjoyed the session and use this knowledge to your advantage in your respective businesses. If you have any further questions, please email it on info@gematlas.com. That is info, INFO, @GEMATLAS.com. And we will forward the same to Dr. Thomas. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you.